Love it here at the Swartz Center. I've been a pioneer, breaking down barriers, making pieces that don't traditionally fit. Some would say it's the force of nature of my energy and that passion. But there's a lot of ingenuity and acuity to be able to think and say, what is it that works in this industry? And as an engineer, thinking as an engineer, how do you merge these processes to innovate? So for me, what I thought was in my engineering journey, and I started at 15 at Syracuse. My son got here at 15 too. So we have this formula we're doing. So it's like, if you can't get a Carnegie Mellon at 15 or Lee University at 15, then what are you doing with your life, right? But anyway, just kidding. But he graduated at 20. I was able to say, well, I want to build better communication of engineering concepts to a wider audience. So I started infusing that in my music, and in infusing it in my music, I was like, there's so much about entrepreneurship that I don't know. So I started doing data science, and this is like 94, 95. Let me look at the Milken Institute. Okay, Milken Institute, what is it that you have about analysis about how you start business, right? Let me look at McKinsey Co. I was doing all of this way before now it's a whole discipline here at CMU, right? So you're talking mid-90s. I'm at Howard doing research, going to small business development centers, thinking about how am I going to be able to build out this multimedia empire. And what I realized was there was not enough knowledge to get people that are not traditionally in the game to be exposed. So out of that, I created Toys Owners Illustrated magazine. So I did a lot of activity before then, DC Chamber of Commerce, got into the network, Web 1.0, before there was Silicon Valley, because in 95, 96, 97, I mean, Steve Jobs was not even at Apple, right? Just imagine Silicon Valley without the iPhone, right? Like, it was nothing. It wasn't nothing, but it had not evolved to what we know today. There was no Google. Just imagine your lives without Google, without an iPhone. Steve Jobs is trying to figure out how to get back in, right? He's doing Pixar, making great entertainment. And I was like, I had comic books, I had media content. I was a creator, but there was no knowledge base on how do I monetize this creative mind. So I was like, well, you got to do it yourself. So I had a whole hook. Who will be rap's first billionaire? And it took me 2 years from 2000 to 2002 to get that off the ground, because it was like, rappers are going to be billionaires. Yeah. Well, it's happened. You know, there's Dre, Jay-Z, Kanye, Rihanna. Like, in that culture now, there's going to be more. But how are they going to get there? So early in that process, I was like, well, somebody needs to chronicle, how do they monetize their IP? Because they're doing incredible things, fashion, and this is my own brand. The great Deity Dive, merchandise trademark, Hustlenomics is a trademark. How are they monetizing this? And what fields are they able to take their license and abilities and touch? This is the scope of what we're going to be talking about today. Superhero creators, and a lot of these people have generated over $1 billion in sales of their products, right? But they started with simple ideas that any one of you could come up with. For me, I'm pursuing it too. I'm like, my product, I could build a unicorn. And being here at the Swartz and being a Swartz Center startup, there's a lot of resources that I'm leveraging to be able to do so. So started off with the campaign, who will be rap's first billionaire, went on tour with 50 Cent, Jay-Z, and Beyonce. You see the autograph copy of the first publication. Went on the Rock the Mic tour, the G Unit tour when it was really on fire. Then before DEI was something cool, in 2005, I was like, why are we not highlighting women in the culture doing what they're doing? So it wasn't even cool in 2005. I was called an idiot. In fact, I said, I will leverage all my points of sale for my owners. And why don't you put this other title, the women's issue, and why don't you put that in all my stores? Well, you're going to lose sales. I was like, but we need to highlight the work of what women are doing. So that was the women's issue. Then in 2007, I was like, you know what? Technology and hip hop are synonymous, but why is that not combined? So they were like, again, Damola, here you come again with this. Why don't you just talk about the rappers? And I was like, yeah, but they in tech. So I started Toys Magazine, hence Toys Electronics, because the magazine was going to cover cars, gadgets, and games, which is what it did. And that's a simulated racer game project, Forza. So I went to Microsoft and I said, hey, why don't I put your game on the cover of a magazine? It's going to reach the hip hop audience, right? Now, that inspired my son to get to Carnegie Mellon, because the products I was reviewing inspired him to say, why are these products not sustainable? So he started drawing solar panels on these technology products. And he's in the room, he's on a call with Microsoft now, because on the back end of our product is Azure. So we're using cloud computing. We're using speech to text with Google speech to text. But when I was originating a lot of these ideas, these technologies didn't even exist, right? So I thought, I did a hip hop jazz fusion album with the music department. And he was Intel Hack Harassment Ambassador in 2017. And what we said is we're going to do an anti-bullying PSA. So we created a song, Stop the Bullying, and it was a whole album, a hackathon, where we had the Future Interfaces group from Craig Street. They came up. We had this professor from the Complex Institute of Complex Engineered Systems, a Sim Small Logic, who's doing fabulous stuff. His research professor, he came up. We had Def Jam Records. We had Autodesk bring employees. We had the Cleveland Clinic. We had former CMU alums that work at Google virtually talk in and help people on wearable tech. We had his former boss from EA do a Skype call because it wasn't Zoom, doing 30 minutes Q&A. He's the GM of EA Sports at that time, doing $1 billion. I'm going to talk more about him, but giving you the context of when you're saying superhero creators, this is where it's coming from. So you're bringing, here's how they commercialize. You could have gaming, you could have fashion, you could have all these things. And in 2019, I hope this does. Okay, this is not.
Focus on what you do best. So go to wix.com/true. This is Jewel, VP of the Ketchup Company.
Sorry about this. Skip ads.
Current workshop is actually one of two workshops we're going to be doing today. This first workshop is asset creation. The next workshop is going to be 3D animation and 3D modeling, and it's with a different set of students.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. What will my slides be? I should probably just play it in the slides. I was trying to play, that current workshop was how we brought STEAM education here at the Swartz Center. Okay, so maybe I could just play it. Okay, I gotta try this again. Okay, here we go.
This current workshop is actually one of two workshops we're going to be doing today. This first workshop is asset creation. The next workshop is going to be 3D animation and 3D modeling, and it's with a different set of students. But what they're doing now is writing their own stories, creating their own art, creating their own.
Talk about superhero creators. This is the model. And you're seeing the elements of being a creator. One of the key elements is storytelling. And you see us teaching kids in here how to storytell. Then we're showing them action figures. That's how to commercialize a merchandise. They made more money off of the Star Wars merchandise than the movies.
So what we have here is where the students are going to report it on them. This is a HyperX. It's really like the HyperX content creator studio. You can actually set this up in your home. We have the HyperX keyboard, HyperX mouse, gamepad, and we're using Audacity. So then the students, what we're gonna do then, after they record their stories, is export out their stories, put it on the USB, and then integrate that into the virtual reality, along with the visual art that they're creating. You create your own backstory, your own character, and our goal is to teach you how you do your own work. Fun fact about this story was I started creating the Great Deity God. I commercialized the Great Deity God when I was 19. So that's when I was able to put it on vinyl.
19-year-old commercializing IP that's lasted almost 30 years. That's the inspiration.
Of this character, created the character, created the music, and I didn't use my face. I was like, I don't want people to see my face. I just want them to see the character and hear the character. So now we're going to teach students like you how you can create your own universe and create your own character. Using software like Audacity is free to download. So when you record your audio, it's something you can download at home. Microphone, there are $100 microphones you can get to record, and then you can play around with music and basically write your own animated story and create your own characters. Here's an art that was created with toys, which shows gaming.
We were way ahead of what Second Life. So this was going to be our multiverse, metaverse back in 2008. What you saw there.
The smartwatch.
And that's the smartwatch we made, and we were doing hackathons at Hunt. So we wanted to build a wearable tech as gaming. That's why we have people like the Future Interfaces group. Imagine, how can you game on a wearable device? But I think we were so cutting edge, the industry wasn't ready for it yet. But you see, dice games was something. Now, here is Logan. He actually took a course that was a collaboration between Carnegie Mellon and Howard last semester, the first of its kind, with the ETC and Howard University CS program. That came out of my I-Core research here at the Swartz. So my I-Core research led to that, and how to digitize what you're seeing here on the video from your mobile phone.
You could actually create here too. So that's part of the 3D animation part of this workshop, where you may actually download this app free, and then in your spare time, play around with creating animated characters and learning 3D modeling.
And here you see that this could also impact younger kids. A future creator playing our app. And you see the hat she's wearing. So you see fashion. Now that's fashion tech, because that's a prototype of what Wally was developing. And then you see merchandising. So technology and being a creator are actually merged. And that's the future we see, because we see that when you do digital technologies, if you could give people the knowledge of how you succeed, where's the metaverse going to lead to? We could 3D print. There's a 3D printer right here. So you could fabricate your concepts. On your concepts, you could fabricate your merchandising ideas, right? And that leads to one of my first features. So I hung out with Salli, Richardson-Whitfield. She's an actress, film director. She's the executive producer of Nevers and a lot of, she did the LA Lakers show on HBO. And she's a Black woman, has been doing this for 3 decades plus. Her husband's also in the game, and it was cool hanging out with her while she was pregnant with her second child and still working and telling me about, well, here's my mindset. I went in there thinking this should be my job because people that look like her were not getting opportunities. But she infused the mindset that this is my job. And that's gotten her to be an executive producer on several shows with her own deal, all around deal with HBO. So we also talked about, well, how is it like? How did you meet your husband? And they're now, grown kids, married for 25 years. So she talked about you meet people in the same business as you because that's what you're around the most. And she talked about we understand each other. How they were able to build this long distance relationship that's able to be nurtured and be supportive. So it wasn't like, okay, I got to choose my career or a family. She talked about how she had a mindset of being able to do both. She had a supportive husband, and she was able to be a mother and raise 2 kids and be one of the most powerful female executives in the industry. You know this person too, Forrest Whitaker. I mean, he's just an Oscar Award winner, right? And I got the chance to hang out. Look at that cool fellow with him. And one thing about him is he's not afraid to take chances as a creator. He's played a wide range of roles. He's playing Bumpy Johnson. He played Idi Amin. He's played Ghost Dog with RZA. He's played a wide range of roles as a creator. And he's been highly successful. And it's like, you got to continue to drive towards your dream, continue to believe, and send out positivity. So if you see there's a common thread here with creators that are able to be successful, it's the mindset. Because you're making subjective art. How do you know what people will like and not like? So you have to have the confidence within yourself that what I create is valuable and it will be successful and accepted. So Neil Long, and this is a cool story, in trying to get this together, I've done so much over 20 years, so I missed most of my interview, but she was such a cool person to hang out with. So I remember that she said, this is nice. And she really appreciated the women's issue I was telling you about before. She loved that vehicle because as a Black woman in the film industry, she's missed so many opportunities. And she spoke about that. But I found an article recently where she talked about how she took the very first executive producer role in a film she did with Netflix. So she talked about it was a great opportunity to ask for a producer's credit because normally she gets passed over for a lot of roles. But she really enjoyed that process. And it was the first time in her career. And she's been in the business for over 30 years, so this was the first time in her career that she felt heard and she felt respected for her ideas. So it's also important to know that how do we empower every creator to believe that they have something to offer? Then Niecy Nash, she's just such a fabulous woman, actress, author, Emmy winner. And she talked about how she got one of her shows, and it was like she just met really great people. And they were like, we like you. And she was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. You like me, but money talks. Let's do something. And she was like, talk is cheap. And they gave her a script and she saw it and she felt like this represents her art. And she's like, I'm in. But she also gives back. And one of the videos I played was me at the Boys and Girls Club. So I also learned from these people, like, She's involved with the Boys and Girls Club and always inspires the next generation to help. There's all these threads. We call them Easter eggs that I put in the beginning of the presentation, and you could actually see how they connect throughout my lecture. So I said, Wale's talking to Microsoft. We're using Azure's backend for Xbox. Here's Bill Giese, one of the biggest creators in Xbox. He runs Forza, and he runs Turn 10 Studios, right? So it's a thread. So we were like, we wanted to build something for scale. Why don't we use what Bill uses, right? So he talks about how they were able to get this realistic driving simulation game that's been very successful, right? Forza Racing. And he's talking about this CAD data. And if some of you engineers, you know about CAD, right? And how they're able to get that into it and then build algorithms for it to simulate a lot of that data in a playable experience that could have multiple people simultaneously play at the same time and race all around the world. When I was at CES in January, they showed me that you don't even need an Xbox console anymore. Forza is fully cloud, and it was an exceptional experience. But again, this is showing you how creators are able to take something. How do I get as much data as possible from an automobile? How do we program that? And then now for the average person online, you just grab your controller and you could game against anybody in the world. And his process did not even involve him completing college. So another concept is, as a creator, you learn by doing. And he applied what he learned to be able to get to his job. Then, obviously, Roy Harvey, I talked about him. So that is Hunt Library, if any of you been familiar, and it's the back room there. So we actually ran hackathons and had students be able to ask a GM of $1 billion title, how do you build this? How do you build that? So he was saying that, well, I want to be in the gaming, I want to be in tech, but I mean, I'm a humanities major. Well, how could you do AI without humanities and understanding the human beings? How could you build storytelling without understanding humans? So he said humanities is probably one of the most important areas for gaming moving forward. Then he gave them advice about UI, the user interface, and also UX. What is the user experience from what you create? And he was like, people think of those things as second class, but those are the most important things. If the UI and UX aren't good, people are just going to drop out the game. And he talked about that. If you create friction to that experience, you make the game too hard, people are just going to drop out. Which is very interesting because when you create art, you want people to come into your world, into your mind as a creator. The key point of this lecture here today is to tell you, how does a creator think on a level where you can sustain yourself from your creativity? Then obviously Shark Tank, who doesn't know? I mean, Daymond John, yeah, he's been in my magazine too. So he was like, everybody's looking for something new. There's nothing else new to do. I mean, yeah, here's a shirt, here's a hat. You throw different designs. I mean, we're still, it's a different cut. But it's about reinforcing the identity. Why is that brand? For me, why do I like Ralph Lauren? It's just classic American fashion. I just love what he does, right? And it's like, you stay authentic to that. And always try to outdo your standard. Never be complacent. So we've always tried to top what we've done previously. And then, how do you use new technologies? And this is the key. People get on social, and he was like, rather than using that to just talk, find something to sell. Monetize your audience. And I'm like, that's a shark telling you what to do. You should listen, right? Then you empower your community. So it's not only thinking about yourself. When you build this community online, then you empower them so that they stick with you, so that they grow, you grow, they grow. Then, I mean, there's a clothing line called Jordan. Some people I've seen, some people were here earlier, they had their Jordans on. Yeah, you know, Larry Miller, he's just the guy that took Michael Jordan from an athlete to a $5 billion brand after his playing career. And he talked about why he was able to work with Michael and what he was able to do for him. Because it's like, well, Michael, there's a lot of athletes that were in the 80s and 90s. They're not rich like Michael. They don't own a team like Michael. And he's like, they didn't understand how to manage their business, manage their money, and that's why a lot of them are broke. But what he loves about this new generation is people are learning and trying to get as much information about business. Like you guys here. That's where I'm at, teaching entrepreneurship and taking lessons of people that have done it at a mega level. You don't get bigger than Jordan Brand in selling sneakers. Here I am with you're getting firsthand knowledge from him through me. Then obviously the unit, 50. And I've done over 20 years of covering him. I have a whole curriculum on his $14 billion in impact. But I always love highlighting what are some of the top lines. It's like everybody should have a 5-year plan. And I was watching the Wu-Tang documentary. I mean, their show on Hulu, and you know, they talk about RZA, and he's been in my magazine. And he was like, from 1992 to 97, we got a 5-year plan on how we're going to build this Wu universe. And they hadn't come out yet. So how do you think of a 5-year plan when nobody has your product? Well, you plan for success. You don't expect it to, oh, I'm going to be lucky and somehow somebody out of the ether is just going to magically make me a $1 billion creator. No, you have to have a plan. It all starts with an idea. And for him, he was prepared for all sorts of scenarios. That's why, oh yeah, they don't want your music. Okay, I'll pivot, I'll do TV. It's the same story. I'm just going to pivot and do that. Oh, wow, you're still successful because I know what I'm doing. I'm a storyteller. It's just a different medium. I'm going to figure it out, but it's the mindset. And he talks about, well, what makes you a star? The material, the performance, the personality. You have a whole package of what you put together as a creator. And it's about what elements you take out of each package. Mix and match. And for him, I just spoke about that, the opportunities that open up for him because of his mindset. So he's able to navigate different industries. Then obviously, Lil Weezy, without him, there's no Drake. Without him, there's not Nicki Minaj, right? And he's gone through a lot of pain and tragedy. And we all go through challenges. And it's a mindset, right? We want hustlers here, but a hustler's mentality, you don't dwell on the tragedy. You don't dwell on the setbacks. I don't dwell on the setbacks. I have a lot of things I carry, but I don't let that, I leave that baggage out the door when it's time to perform. You got to be focused because there's always going to be obstacles. It's your mindset. And losses are part of the game. If you're a risk taker, you're going to lose, but you're also going to win. So if you understand, okay, win some, lose some, it's in the game. All right. Okay, how do I come back? One of my friends out of Houston, you know, Swish House, they were like, a setback is a setup to a comeback. And he talks about his own devotion to what he does. And I'm here. This is me and him hanging out in the studio, autograph copy. Then, of course, myself, how did I do this? And for me, I say culture dictates commerce. The great Deity died. That's my brand. When I say culture dictates commerce, you commercialize how humans interact. People forget that. It's like, well, why is this popular on TikTok? Well, if TikTok didn't commercialize how people do dances, then nobody would be on TikTok. What's TikTok without culture? Just good code, but who buys code? You don't buy code, you buy the culture. The code helps you translate culture and bring more people to experience culture with you. Creator mindset. Then for me, it's about, well, why are you doing this? And I say a man gains immortality when his daily deeds and actions are worthy of dying for. So when his body decays, his soul shall remain everlasting. Why do you say that? I'm gonna say live a life of purpose. Live a life beyond your physical frame. You got to think beyond your body. Think in your spirit, in your karma. What kind of energy do you want to leave on this planet when you're done? And if you live your life focused on that, who accepts you? That doesn't matter. What does matter is how authentic you were to what you wanted to build. As you're building your product, how authentic were you? I talked about Steve Jobs. He's long gone, but I still have an iPhone because he just thought phones should be different, and he transformed it. He had a whole different way of how technology and humans should interact. And as a result, it just changed a lot. And that leads to the third point. The current system does not work for people that look like me and my son. We're a rarity. We're unicorns here on this campus. Earlier, one of the students we helped get here was here. He was in our program when he was 10. And we worked a way for kids that don't normally get here to get here through our intervention. So you have to look at a different route. How do you get to these destinations? It doesn't matter. Oh, well, this is what the system does. And I'm wearing a sticker. I was at Plum High School, so we do a lot of work engaging in. How do you transform? Well, what we do at Toys is we gamify STEAM education so it could include more people. And we make it culturally relevant by using hip hop. So that now, well, hip hop is the most popular music culture. So that means that it's like if I was doing something in the 60s and I'm saying I'm using rock and roll to make education, that would have been cool. So why don't you do that now? What's stopping you? Well, this is, who cares what this is? I'm in a mindset of be a disruptor, transform systems, build something new. As a creator, as an entrepreneur, there's no rules to what you could build. So go build. What we want to provide is a framework of, well, here are these successful entrepreneurs. Glean what you can, make your own stew. Take this from this person, take this from 50, take this from Bill Giese, take this from Roy Harvey, take this from Salli Whitfield, and make something that's yours. Thank you, and I'm open to anybody's questions. Yes.
What's next for you?
Yes. So we're actually a Swartz Center startup. I'm giving out t-shirts for people that download our app on iOS and Android. We're actually looking for interns. We're actually looking for people to build this whole unit out. I'm saying, what would education look like in the year 2030? Let's build it. Why not here at CMU? Why don't we pioneer that? I take a story from at the turn of the last century. A former enslaved person, Booker T. Washington, wrote a letter to Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie gave him $20,000 for a library in Tuskegee. 3 years later, he came with then Senator William Taft in a similar way to how the new current governor and the president of the university are walking around. So they did that at Tuskegee. Andrew Carnegie was so impressed, he gave him $1.1 million in that time, which is over $1 billion in today. This was 1903. That endowed Hampton University and Tuskegee. So in that same spirit, out of my I-Corps research, I was like, well, HBCUs have a large body of students they serve that are descendants of former enslaved people. How can universities like Carnegie Mellon support them and help them build up capacity? Why don't we do a pilot program that could lead to an accelerated master's at Carnegie Mellon? Okay, it took 2 years. Working through administrations, getting MOU signed. And last semester, the class kicked off. I said, Carnegie Mellon has this framework called the IDA program. It's interdisciplinary. Why don't we leverage that? Then Carnegie Mellon also partners with a lot of universities overseas. Why don't we leverage that? So those are two contract structures that the institution is comfortable with. But you think about innovation. Why don't I plug this into this input? Now, one of the students out of the 10 is very excited. She's taking the second class that we're doing a little later on today. And she's very interested in getting her master's degree now at Carnegie Mellon. So you take where, wow, we're struggling to get people in this audience. Okay, well, they're there. But what is the bridge? Right? Oh, they could apply. Well, that's open and it's not working. So what is the intervention needed? That's what's next. You got to open up this pathway or these pathways to more people. But you still want them to be, but they still got to have the ability to do the rigor. Okay. So we went to the medals program and said, okay, here's my curriculum framework. Let's work on it. Let's get it HCI level. Then MIT is like, well, you guys are finalists for anti-racist tech. Okay. Then you're in the incubator in MIT for unbundling policing. So if you could get MIT, Carnegie Mellon on the engineering level to validate it, then next step is how do we reduce the friction so that anybody with a mobile device anywhere on the planet could learn these skills so that as AI becomes ubiquitous, humans are still ahead of the machines because AI could not do what I did. The machine would not have thought about the algorithms or how I had. It could compute things I did to make it easier, right? It could even have feelings. But I tell my son a lot, I don't indulge my feelings. Because if I indulge my feelings sometimes, the frustration would lead me down a dark path where I could not preserve the opportunities that he's able to benefit from. So you have to have emotional intelligence. I've yet to see somebody build AI with emotional intelligence. Maybe that's the next algorithm they'll do. But emotional intelligence is not something that humans generally have easily, right? And then you have to have a whole coding team that's just so emotionally intelligent that they now will be able to work that code structure to build it into a programmable algorithm. I'd love to see that. Maybe, you know, we could have people that are highest mind and be able to program AIs to be our nirvana, right? But I saw what they said about the OpenAI ChatGPT, where it was like, no, it started wanting to destroy things, right? So I'm like, it lost after a point in time the humanity benefit. So what's next is looking for people that want to join and being able to get this platform in as many places and then pre-post surveys. How do we build data science on that? How do we get best practices? How do we influence a whole generation to change how you learn? Modernize learning so it includes everybody so that human capacity is increased. Let's not be afraid of the machines. Let's maximize and utilize the machines to make humanity better. That's our goal. Well, thank you so very much. This has been awesome. Sorry about the time, but I hope I made up for it with the great, you know, telling all these great stories. I'm looking forward to what we do again next year for the next Connect Talk. But I do have shirts. I do have shirts for people who download the app and then shirts for free. No problem. Thanks.